Okay, there's something to know. I just finished doing work on a response video to Ryan Wiley, a fellow YouTube user, and he has 900 videos. So I will not be doing that many responses to this guy because it's too much. I have other stuff on my plate. But I grabbed out the thing that ever caught my interest in all of this, and he has something semi-recent. Not really recent, but semi-recent about it. What is one of his video titles here, just to give him some hoo-ha? Thunderfoot is no Edward Snowden 2 months ago, and Who Can Beat Hillary Clinton is right behind the video that I watched. So anyway, yeah, one of his somewhat high view videos is the one I picked out. Video games have cultural effects. I'm gonna leave him a comment right now. The thing that he made a big point about, the like brief moment he was on the podcast that I was listening to when I was listening to it. The Drunken Peasants thing. Yeah, like the brief moment he was actually in that, his whole point was like nobody makes a good case. Like everyone just kind of throws shit on the table and is just like blah. And that's kind of like a lot of my point. But the whole point about making that point is you have to be able to circle around again and be like, here's my fucking case. And now that I've looked at his fucking case, at least in regards to the video games and cultural perceptions intersection issue, he's totally fucking wrong. He's never really looked into how social science studies are done through a multitude of means, and every once in a while they'll do one with like control groups. Only accept stuff that meets like to statistical standards and all this kind of shit, and taking giant like several year studies and all these kinds of things. And most of this, like, I'm Anita Sarkeesian, I'm, Josh McIntosh, whatever. It's like these people, what is it, like Gawker Media is kind of tied up in all of this. They just make their living off of just spewing shit that's not true in regards to exactly these kinds of issues. Where it's like, if that'll piss people off the most at this moment in time to say that video games make people sexist, then that's what they're going to do. And they're going to do it through this kind of means. They're not just going to freaking jump up and make podcasts and...
A crucial belief held by many people who disagree or dislike Anita Sarkeesian's theories is that video games don't cause any type of change in attitudes, that they don't affect your behavior in any subtle way, or they don't affect how you view the world. And I don't know how this has started, but it keeps coming up, and it's amazing because I don't know why people believe this. And usually what happens is people are like, well, I mean, video games don't cause you to act sexist, just like video games don't cause you to become violent. And that's where the misunderstanding comes in. Anita Sarkeesian is not suggesting that you go out and you just beat the shit out of women if you play a video game that allows you to beat women, right? That's the fundamental straw man that people like Thunderfoot and all types of people will try to suggest. Rather, what might be going on here is that perhaps these depictions of women in video games normalize some attitudes which we might think are problematic, such as that women are sex objects.
For starters, I was going to film a video, but home production studio qualities are still quite low. So we're gonna do the podcast version instead. And here we have Ryan Wiley's Video Games Have Cultural Effects. I raise with Ryan the fact that the argument is not over if video games have any effect, but rather the fact of a profound effect. And I'm asking him to use the proper terminology, because when we confuse our rhetoric, we almost always end up using an unintentional straw man position upon the other person. An unintentional straw man. He's accusing at the very beginning of the video of myself and many others who criticize Anita Sarkeesian of using straw man arguments against her. And I believe that he is unintentionally straw manning, in this case Thunderfoot, or Phil Mason of YouTube, with this position. And I've never heard him say, and I've never said either, and none of these people I've listened to have said, that there is just zero effect of any kind, cultural, otherwise, and just effects. Zero effects. That's not it. It's profound effect, and it's defined around adults, just like the ESRB ratings, more or less. Not everyone agrees with those, myself included, but, around that kind of thing, where there's an age restriction around the really crazy stuff. Everyone agrees to that. No one disagrees with that. That's not Anita's point. Anita's point is that what gets through the age restrictions is really, really, really bad and causes really, really, really bad things, and that's not supported by anyone but those people over there saying that. And then I went on to talk about how a lot of what Ryan Wiley covers in this video is basically what you can find on a response to Thunderfoot type thing on Feminist Frequency, where it plays the videos in question from, what is it? Gaming vs. Tropes, I believe is the title. And it plays the clip where Anita Sarkeesian says, like, the words, like, profound effect, and then it comes in with, like, a text style, like this podcast style, and says that's not what she's saying. And it was like, well, she did just say it, like, 5 seconds before I heard this, so that was kind of a bad case, wasn't it? And Ryan Wiley approaches it much better by not actually playing the initial clip or anything like that. So that's a good way to handle it. I give him credit for handling it that way, and that makes him look good, that he doesn't just play her words and, back it up that way. That certainly works. He gets the broadcaster clap, but not the ethics clap there.
The sexual rewards you can get. The sexual rewards you can get. The sexual rewards you can get. If you play video games, you're not going to go out and murder people. You're not going to go out and just beat people. First off, it doesn't even matter what the studies on violence are. We're talking about two different issues. One is much more cultural, and violence is much more related to behavior and the things you do to other people. So first off, it's not clear that the two are automatically in the same boat. And more than that, a lot of people feel that video games are art. I think video games are art too. And the reason they're art is they make you feel a certain way. They make you look at the world a different way, right? They change your perception of certain things through the art of the story.
And Ryan Wiley approaches it much better by not actually playing the initial clip or anything like that. So that's a good way to handle it. I give him credit for handling it that way, and that makes him look good, that he doesn't just play her words and, back it up that way. That certainly works. He gets the broadcaster clap, but not the ethics clap there. And then he uses the term, I pick out terms that he uses and either criticize them or elucidate on them at this point. Normalizing attitudes is where the social science is failing to provide me or anyone invested in the hard science with anything but wild conjecture and poorly executed studies that seek to establish next to nothing of substance. Much like terms such as perceived harassment and subtle sexism, these are meaningless in the social science context because they are so heavily ill-defined and so incredibly subject to personal biases. What we're looking at here is something I raised in the comments with Ryan already on this video, is a term called internalized biases. It's also referred to as inferential biases. It has a few other terms you can find, usually starts with an I and then biases. And that's the topic of academic debate. Now, it's near complete consensus in the academic world in regards to this topic that it's not possible to accurately measure it or to give it any kind of clear classification in the field of behaviorism. It's not something that's recognized like post-traumatic stress disorder, for instance. It's not like that. It's not depression. It's nothing like that. It's something that may exist to some degree for some people, but it's too hard to measure, to pin down, so they don't count it as just a hard science. They count it as a hypothetical and nothing more. Not quite anti-gamer. It's more like, we are against, something like GTA 5 ever being produced again in America and selling big, and like it really is pretty much the anti-pornography thing. When you really get down to it, it's like it's exactly that shit right there, where it's just like they may not be saying that, but what is their like point? It's like, well, that's too risque for something so interactive. And it's like, so they're gonna be really against like VR and really against like any kind of incorporation with like the pornography industry and virtual reality. Well, that's just an inevitable. There's no getting around that kind of thing. It was just like pornography and the internet, where it's like you couldn't possibly have ever hoped to stop that from happening. So, yeah, it's a matter of understanding society. Ties into some of the stuff I was getting into, talking about libertarians and how libertarianism more than conservatism is kind of taking off these days. And they are just as wrong as the conservatives about a whole bunch of this stuff, but it doesn't really matter provided they're just out here spreading their opinions and talking about stuff. It's all a very good thing. It's called being part of the body politic. And that's not what we're doing here with Ryan Wiley. Ryan Wiley is another public intellectual. That he has a math degree, good for him. I don't have any degrees beyond the high school variety, but I know more about psychology and sociology than Ryan does. And Phil knows more about all these things than me and Ryan smashed together. And I probably know enough to get by in terms of like kicking Phil out the door. Mainly because, like, I don't know, Sargon of Akkad is here to save me or something. And yeah, at 1 minute, 19 seconds, time stop, time frame, time jerking around in the backyard. The critics of Sarkeesian are very correct to bring up the dehumanization is much stronger for male figures within violent gaming mediums, with the overwhelming majority of human-formed enemies being male, and the frequent aftermath being many dead bodies of all men in the environment which you must then transverse. As a random aside, VR is a real thing now. It's very exclusive and not done in any way that seems at all impressive without a demo to see for myself. Hint, hint. But that's a piece of tech news to pass along. Virtual reality is coming, and the gaming industry will be all over that the second it goes to the open market. Ryan Wiley's not that interesting. Yeah, he's just a public intellectual who's not that invested in like getting into the, what does science really say? What does science really say? Before I formulate a big opinion and get online all a month ago or so about how, video games just cause cultural effects, and everyone who doesn't get that is a sociopath or a liar. It's like, before you do that, you look into what inferential bias is. You look into the recent studies about inferential bias and how they don't have much other than the subconscious brain activity that they can actually back up, how almost none of them have control groups. A good example here, science time, is right now they're doing a control group, good science experiment, right now, with two identical twins, and one is down on the planet Earth, and the other's going up to the Mir space station. And then, after a set amount of time, the control, the Earthbound identical twin, and the Mir space station, spacebound identical twin, will both come in to a lab at an exact point where a bunch of people have worked on numbers about what exactly they should be seeing and what exactly all the results should be, with the non-control versus the control. This is math now. Is Ryan listening? This is math. This is the part of science that is math, is that kind of getting out to the point where you don't have the point to get to. That's a lot of what Newton did. Anyway, look, right there, you've got science. You've got that moment where they come in and you've got predictions and you've got hard test subjects to look at, and you can look at the bone density as the main thing they're looking at here. Yes, Very different with inferential bias. Inferential bias is a whole wild bucking Mustang trying to jump on that thing, just get you thrown right off again, Ryan. And you're talking about it like you've got this kitten in your pocket. It's stupid. You're being stupid online. It's okay. It's okay. Did you hear my thing? Did you listen to any of this? I don't even think I posted it yet, but I'm going to post it. Yeah. No, the thing that I think is stupid, what I've done thus far is dancing around the issue and whatnot. No, the thing that I think is stupid, where I got really drunk. Yeah. You know, you should see what I'm doing, Ryan. I mean, just calm down if you think I'm coming down on you. No, I'm the biggest idiot ever. But you're being stupid online, man. I mean, crap. What Ryan does here is not a straw man argument at this particular section of the video, so much as he's choosing to go after the easiest of the targets in the critics of the feminist frequency material. Like, the circles that we're making here are just endless with this guy. I mean, it just keeps going back to, like, the stuff I already put into the comments, where it's just... You know, you're talking about psychology, you're not talking about internet trolls, okay? Yeah, it's the exact same thing again. It's just she is arguing that point, that there is profound effects on the industry and individuals that come from games like Bayonetta, Bayonetta 2, Grand Theft Auto 4, Grand Theft Auto 5. You know, it's like she's arguing that point again and again in public. She chooses to focus on cyber harassment. She has a thing where, you know, she'll make a speech about gender issues and then cancel it and then say something about gun stuff and then not ever say anything more about gun stuff. You know, like she has a tendency to, for whatever reason, not particularly do any one particular political or social mantra beyond just kind of the vague moniker of like feminism for feminism. So, you know, whatever, it's her choice as a broadcaster and a public intellectual and as a... And then I saw him use the term, the art of the story. And then I said, read my damn blog, Ryan. ERICLIGHTBORN.blogspot.com. Read the whole thing. Alright, now we're at the 3 minutes time stampings. And I haven't looked over what I wrote on that blog I just put up on your audio ears about the cyber harassment thing. If it's not on there, then I'll get it back on there. I thought it was on there. I have too much internet. But anyway, yeah, I did this. I covered this before she covered this, ha ha ha, you know? And it is a thing where it was like a significant element of the internet kind of in the founding days of Facebook and the kind of, you know, beginning shakings out of YouTube and the kind of death throes of MySpace, and like, yeah, that was a thing then. That was a while ago. That was like 15 fucking years ago or something in some of these cases, depending on what we're talking about. So it's like, what is what a lot of this stuff is from these people. Ryan Wiley, Anita Sarkeesian, Josh McIntosh, I think is the proper way to say his name. Or Jonathan McIntosh. I don't know if he wants John or if it's McIntosh. He needs to get on the air, say his name clearly for everyone. Just like I always do. So it's fine, it's not a big deal in terms of what she does, but I really don't like the direction the academics are taking it, which is definitely the way that he's trying to frame everything. Because it's just not true for everybody. It's not true for all women, it's not true for all men, it's not even true for all kids is the crazy part. I mean, those really old studies done in like the 70s and stuff, what the hell are they called? Not the Stanford studies, the other ones about the first inferential bias studies, discovered that the thing that we subject children to the most, animated style content, the thing that we do the most to them like inadvertently, just through the way how the media and society works, is the thing that they most are readily able to and understandably emulate directly at the youngest ages. So yeah, think about that for a little while we're all on the topic of psychology and the things Eric knows that Ryan does not know, apparently, is that one of the things that someone from a very extreme position could try and take up on all of this is to say, hey, look, you know, we gotta ban Frozen. We gotta ban Tangled. You know, we gotta ban pretty much everything Disney, Pixar, all of that. You know, it's pretty much, not all of it, but most of it's like, it's banned because that one part, you know, the guy like jumps on the horse and like knocks someone over or something, and now a child that is being directly marketed to in this case, not the thing where we're confusing our topics like Anita Sarkeesian loves to do, where you're talking about one thing and you're really not saying what you're talking about there. Not that. Not talking about childhood development psychology and video games rated for adults and teens only. Like, not doing that stupid thing. Actually, like, you know, trying to make a point that there's a real substantive difference there between what the hell we're talking about on one side to the other. That one side isn't really saying anything. They're just kind of like, oh, this shit exists, like, inferential bias is huge, and if you, like, you know, look at a girl funny in the workplace, like, it ruins her job, and it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I need more than just my feels. From both the modern feminist movement and the goddamn MGTOWs and the goddamn MRAs and the whole MRM. Yes, you gender issues people on all sides are starting to just piss me off more than I really want to frickin' try and deal with it anymore. It's just like, yeah, fuck it, man, fuck it. You people don't even try to make a goddamn case on either side. Only person I've ever seen really fucking try is Girl Writes What? Karen Strawn on YouTube. Yes. She makes a case, but she read a bunch of the same shit I've read and just kind of like picked out the 40% that she liked about it and went like, that's the truth. And it's like, I don't know what the fuck the truth is. Give me a goddamn time machine. What I know is that women have influenced history since the beginning of fucking time, and they've had less and more ability to do so depending on the cultural situation they were living within at said time. This time we live in now, as a man, as best I can tell, seems to be a pretty damn good time to be a woman in a lot of respects, but not in every respect. It's all about, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get in political office? Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's like, there's not a lot of women in politics, and there's a lot of women in the populace, and we have a representative government, so that doesn't make much sense. That's like, what the hell? But, you know, women do run for office and compete fairly and equally in the field of democracy against men. So, you know, let's keep doing that, and with time, and that's the same way with the business world, where it's like, look, there's all these laws that protect women who are being unjustly kept from employment or advancement because of their gender status. And I'm the type where I'm quick to rat on my boss or whatever if it comes up. Like, yeah, you know, I'll be the insider, I'll do it, but you have to give me something to work with. I'm a reporter. I'm a, you know, journalist-esque type person. I mean, it just doesn't mean anything to me when people are like, you're showing me this thing that had the anime girl on it, and I know it's declared safe for work, but I hate this stuff and it offends me. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I won't, you know, show you that. You told me that you didn't want to see it, and it's closed now and it's gone, and now I'm just on the news page or something, and then they're just so angry and so upset about this, and it's like, this is not okay. You know, people have to have a standard of behavior that they're able to clearly to express to others, be it the work environment or the home environment or the friends environment or whatever environment. You have to be able to like say like what your standards are at some point But beyond that, it's like, no, when people respect your boundaries, you do not get to turn around and say something really bad happened to me. Like, that is not what the hell it is in the real world, and that's the whole establishing point of the kind of feminist frequency, Gawker media, these people we call Tumblrinas. That's kind of the establishing point they're making. It's not an academic or a scientific point. It's just kind of a gross assertion. It's a hypothesis, is what I call it, that there's this giant thing that happens where men are in a work environment or a social environment, and they behave perhaps like I do quite often, and then it's just awful, and they're, what do we call it, fuckboys, and it's like, no, actually, it's pretty bad the other way around. Like, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us men that are getting labeled in this way are very calm and reasonable, and we just have our opinions, and that's just what it is, and we're not trying to advocate the hate Anita cult or whatever the hell that creepy crap is going on some corner of the internet, and it's just not the case. But their whole, statement in summation is that we have to be that in order for them to have their identity. Like, we can't be an organic product of just like the times are a changing, now there's such a thing as like a gender egalitarian, what are you gonna do? It's like, it can't be that. It has to be, Eric Lightborn is a sexist. Like, it has to be that. It can't be anything else. And it's just like, no, that's what some of these fucking people are. Every fucking time I hear it, there's one fellow I'm gonna just tear apart just for fun on exactly that at some point, So yeah, exactly. It's just a thing where, yeah, there's fucking sexists out there. So fucking what? There's racists, there's morons, there's everything you can think of. There's terrorists. Anything you can think of, it's out there. And that's why you need to make a point and make it clear. And they are making a point to a certain degree. They're making a hypothesis that inferential bias is heavily affected by something like video game violence or video game sexism or anything like that. And it's just not really true. There's nothing to back it up beyond just, hey, this is true, guys. Let me make another fucking YouTube video about it. But for most people, they're not like that. Most people are not just absolutely laden with something we might call triggers. Like, that's not your everyday person. That's also not someone who's experiencing, like, extremely abnormal psychology, just to be clear here. Like, that's not my point. My point is just that it's not the absolute norm to be at that point where what is so easily and normally digestible and made money off of in the media spheres is something where you're just unable to even deal with it being in front of you. Like, no, that means you fit into a certain kind of category. Someone like me is going to be very tempted to call you a prude or something like that, but it's just, what do they put in the marketing language? It's, you're in the sensitivity demo. You just put yourself in the sensitivity demo, Ryan. You're over in the sensitivity demo. I can't go there because every time I go there, I just say one word and everyone's like, oh, you're the worst thing that ever happened. So yeah, here's a little tip for Jonathan McIntosh and Anita Sarkeesian. Right over your head, Ryan. Sorry. The tropes hypothesis is the best way to present this, guys. I mean, you're coming at this through the marketing lens, as I'm, like, blowing you out on. I know, you're pissed off. Ooh, so sorry. I have to make money, too. But no, look, the tropes hypothesis, that's the way to approach this. When you just say, like, the gaming tropes issue and the gaming tropes series, it just sounds like you've, like, made a movie, and we all know that you and Anita are not gonna, like, make a movie. You guys are busy, whatever you're doing, whatever, so have fun. And here's a free tip. The tropes hypothesis works a lot better, because then you're, like, appealing to these, like, heady intellectuals out there, and at the same time doing your whole sleazy, smeezy, schmidt smile crap that I won't do. So yay for you. Alright, so now back to Ryan. It's just simply a matter of these PC crowd and feminist frequency crowd people trying to herd cats and calling it a political position. It's actually the exact same rebuke we artists and writers receive from the likes of like Pat Robertson or maybe like Bill O'Reilly. Like no kidding, it's the exact same thing that the super religious crazy people try to tell artists and writers and bloggers and, you know, anybody doing something like that. It's like, you can't do that because it's causing people to be like this. Same exact thing, Anita Sarkeesian's mouth to our ears. Screw you is like totally the reaction of any artist, and that's a lot of what Anita Sarkeesian and Jonathan McIntosh and all these people are tapping into in terms of game developers, is they're just looking at, not all, but certain game developers and saying like, yeah, you guys like suck at making art, and not only should you like, you know, not just get better at it, you should just stop. You should just stop. You know, and it's just like, they can go fuck themselves on that point. The feminist frequency people and all of them can just go fuck themselves on that point. Just how Pat Robertson and Bill O'Reilly and all the rest of those religious fundamentalist Islamists who have all the exact same positions on this stuff can all go fuck themselves on that point. Art, as long as it's presented to you and explained to you to be art, anytime you're asking what is that, that's art, you know, is art. It's not completely untouchable, but it's art. You need to just calm down and deal with the fact that it's not for kids and it's art. And so we come to something that is new instead of just circling round and round with Ryan Wiley, which is that he talks about the same shit that I talk about just a little bit in this podcast series here, which is media presentation. But he and I completely disagree about this. He's saying that he pretty much has to do those webcams. Like, that's kind of the point that he's not making in the video, is like he has to do those webcams. And that is not the case. Look, if I say into this voice recorder staring at the screen in this rough script here, go Niners, go Warriors, you know, like if I say that, I don't need to go rent the public access studio. What? But if I need to do this thing in my head where I do like a political call-in show, then yeah, I'm going to need their stuff, and I'm going to need those kinds of cameras, and I'm going to need way more stuff than I have, and all kinds of things. And I could also just do something like that with a home studio, and you know, it's like that's totally possible too. So yeah, it's the kind of thing where, depending on what you're doing, your presentation matters more or less on kind of a sliding scale. And if you have kind of zero presentation at all, then there's kind of no way you're gonna get heard, because like everything you did was like squawk box noises and like was inaudible essentially, you know. And even if you're like totally insane, like my what was it, the 5 subs thing, you know, even if you're like totally off the charts, like just but you know, just like that, it's like there's still fucking some views on that shit. So no, it doesn't fucking matter, Ryan. You can have some fun on here. I can't come up with a good idea now that I've been trying to do like music mashing and like running through all my poetry and stuff. It's like I can't come up with any good ideas. I think I'm just gonna do like a fucking poetry reading or something, because I'm just such a goddamn artsy fartsy person. It's just like, well, shit. I'll just read poetry. I haven't got any video game crap or anything cool. I'll read poetry. That's what I'll do. Fucking poetry. Everyone loves poetry, right? Ryan Wiley believes that presentation in media is almost sacrosanct. It's like a holy grail presentation. And I just piss all over it. I'm just like, no, wait a minute. I'm not really doing anything that profound. And even when I get fully up and running, I'm not really doing anything that profound beyond perhaps, you know, journalism or something like that. So it's like, no, calm down, everybody, is my reaction to people with Ryan Wiley's sentiment about that. And in conclusion, Ryan Wiley seems smart, and he's obviously able to frame this argument he's making properly. He uses correct grammar in his video titles and all of his comments, and it's a very commendable practice to see. And the intellectual fiber he brings is complete shit. And in short, he's trying to be the man who personally awarded Anita Sarkeesian the Harvard Humanist 2014 award. Except most likely, he's just like me. He's just some freelance operator on the YouTube. So, yeah, you're no Greg Epstein, my friend. And neither am I. Yet.
My primary focus is to provide some counterpoint for Feminist Frequency's numerous assertions that video games have, historically, sent uniquely harmful messages regarding women. My secondary focus is that the supporters of Feminist Frequency enable and participate in online bullying of those holding dissenting opinions. Anita's personal biography is not relevant to this analysis.
And that is Liana Kersner, found here on YouTube at Liana K, Liana space capital K. And the title of this video, it's a several part series, this is just the first one here, is Why Feminist Frequency Almost Made Me Quit Writing. And it's a static image of Liana here, and the title. And it's an interesting video. I'm going to play some more of it. But I wanted to kind of capture more points of view here rather than just cover me versus Ryan Wiley kind of stuff. We have this. Liana Kersner is a fellow writer. I am only just recently aware of her as of moments ago. She is also interested in video games. She is also obviously aware of the Feminist Frequency YouTube content and the resounding media reaction to said content. So, that's what she's got to say, is whatever I'm about to say when she's saying it. No, actually, I'm just going to let her talk. But yes, what I'm doing is kind of closing this one out. I think it's about done. Ryan Wiley and Anita Sarkeesian both fall into the exact same camp, just more public intellectuals. And yeah, I try and grab like educators and journalists and politicians and people who matter and pick them out as subjects and do that every once in a while instead of just only bouncing around. But I like us writers and us public intellectuals and professional communicators and all these things. We're all cool. So Liana Kersner is going to do her thing right now. Go. You go, girl.
Influence she and her followers have on gaming is. Please share your thoughts on my work, but do it in a respectful way without hate, malice, or abusive language. Even if you disagree with a person, they're still a person. Bad ideas deserve criticism, but people are not bad because they have some bad ideas. So without further ado, let's get started. Each day this week, another part of this series will be posted for a total of 5 parts. I hope you find this journey informative. Part 1, an introduction to my perspective on the current state of the gaming community. My theory has always been that I have a unique perspective on games that isn't actually so unique. There are plenty of fun-loving women who enjoy video games who don't have a platform. In order to reach the people who actually consume games, I use populist language. People don't want to be talked to like they're in a school when consuming content about a hobby that's supposed to be fun. Does this mean I'm opposed to academic examinations of video games? Of course not. I've even done them. I choose to focus on op-ed writing because it reaches more people. For 10 years, I've assumed that if I worked hard enough for long enough, I'd be given a fair shot to earn a living wage writing about games. But the rise of salary by crowdfunding has made controversy, backstabbing, having the right friends, and dishonest twisting of facts more important to one's bottom line than actually knowing what you're talking about. People are throwing a lot of money at controversy, but they're not rewarding sense. My assumptions that hard work was the way to get ahead failed to factor in the reality that business is less what you do and more who you know. Most of the influential voices writing about games are still overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly male. There's nothing wrong with this as long as both men and women can provide vital product. My concern is that many men in positions of power in gaming seem to just be playing musical white man chairs with job opportunities, and they're more interested in propping up existing female voices than finding new ones to provide a diversity of opinion. This runs counter to their professed desire to increase gender diversity in gaming. Instead of increasing real diversity, the current model is lip service and tokenism. The rise of feminist frequency has been accompanied by a vicious form of social aggression that's unleashed on anyone who disagrees with Anita Sarkeesian and Jonathan McIntosh. Surprisingly, active developer support has emboldened the bullying by the feminist frequency fan mob that often seeks to silence dissent over encouraging diversity and debate. Surprisingly, active developer support has emboldened the bullying by the feminist frequency fan mob that often seeks to silence dissent over encouraging diversity and debate. Instead of making things better for women in the video game industry, these phenomena have strengthened the token status of women because all women are now judged in comparison to Anita Sarkeesian. From where I sit, it seems that women are being forced into two roles: angry feminist stereotype, aka Sarkeesian-esque trope, or freelancer relegated to the back room where all the less desirables fight for slim pickings.
Yeah, believe it or not, I am a humanist or a gender egalitarian or whatever. Believe it or not, if you read every comment I ever wrote ever, you could find me finding exactly this, talking about not just feminism, but racism and you name it, of the isms. People want it so bad to be black and white with this stuff. They just want it like that, where it's you either are the, massive over the top over there, that's what you are, or you're exactly like I am about it. And it's nope, no way, at the end of the day kind of stuff can come up, but yeah, there's no frickin' perfect box for anything, and feminism is a perfect example of one that's really hard to get down into this oh, you're the ninth wave of the second division of the pro-sex negative Mexican dance squad. It's just whatever. There's no real clear anything that's gonna make sense to anyone except someone who's maybe a gender studies major, and even still, it's those are usually the people that are the most disinterested, not always, but the most disinterested in approaching things through this scientific lens. They want to talk the raw socio-political angle only, and they don't want to do the numbers, and it's just well, the numbers make sense when they make sense, and when you use them when they don't make sense, it's just talking out your ass, just like politics.
Oh, you hadn't heard that proxies for feminist frequency bully people? Yeah, the media stories tend to be the other way around. And it's undeniable that the extremes of the treatment Anita has received have been thoroughly unacceptable. However, that shouldn't give her a pass on flawed theories, statements that shame stigmatized groups of women like sex workers, and her serving as an inspiration to bully anyone who is a source of dissent. Furthermore, it definitely shouldn't excuse male figureheads who join the demands that women fit the Sarkeesian mold. For a long time, I was afraid to publicly say what I really believed. Then Anita Sarkeesian encouraged the audience at an XOXO talk to listen and believe women who claim harassment and abuse. Only women. That hit a nerve. I know 3 different men who have been falsely accused of abuse, and they had their lives dragged through the mud because too many people just took the woman's word regarding what happened. To be clear, it's not my belief that they didn't do the things they're accused of. I know these guys didn't do it because I was a witness to some of the events that the accusers twisted. These men suffered social recriminations, and in some cases, lost work. They became victims of female abuse, specifically a phenomenon known as relational aggression. This has made me concerned that we're not, collectively, keeping a close enough eye on the phenomenon of male victims of abuse because we limit our understanding of abuse to something that men do to women. Men do get abused, by women as well as other men. They aren't given nearly enough support by the system because men are expected to be able to take care of themselves due to extremely gendered assumptions about male power. This is the stuff we're talking about when you hear feminists say that patriarchy hurts men too. Feminist Frequency frequently addresses the depictions of sexualized violence against women in video games. It doesn't compare and contrast them with the instances in the very same games where men are victims of abuse as well. This sort of one-sided analysis can lead to a misleading depiction of a given game, which could potentially send the wrong messages to those who have never played that game and frustrate those who have. For some men, the offense runs so deep that they feel like Feminist Frequency's method of analysis is erasing their experiences by focusing only on the abuse of women.
Yeah, this is something I said myself as well in very different words. Which is, I didn't focus on what she's focusing on until just recently, about how most of the, just overwhelming gorehouse time of just every video game ever is men, enemies, like male humanoid-ish enemies, getting blown to pieces, and then they're pieces being lying around or slowly fading away. So it's most of the this is what aggression is in video games. It's male on male violence, most of it, not all of it. And then, what is the, core message that some kind of, highly attuned young male might pull out of all of that? Well, it's you're shit. You're just crap. You're just this disposable, meaningless little piece of flotsam that's just kind of bounced into the world and then bounced right back out again like you're nothing. And then you compare that against the kind of general notions kind of handed around in pediatric levels of today in the United States and in many other places called the First World. And it's you look at what little I know of the mediums and productions made for little girls and made towards that specific demographic, and it's very be cool, be successful, be happy, be sexy, and it is be sexy, even though that one is what, it's yeah, that's what they fucking do. What do they call it, brats or whatever is my best example of something I actually dealt with. Whatever, I don't get it. Have some freaking marketing person explain to me why they do that, and then I'll cover it better. But yeah, that's a thing. And that's what I'm getting at, that Liana Kersner might not be getting at, is that a lot of what Anita Sarkeesian does is just straight up marketing. What do they call it? Like hot room or whatever. It's the stuff where we're the crazy ones. We're the ones that we create 9,000 business models in a day. That kind of thing. We're usually high. I'm not. That kind of thing. Yeah. Wolves of Wall Street on the internet. Ooh, yeah. Let's get it going, people. That's what we need on here. We need money coming in. Anyway, yeah, that's the big difference, I think, between myself and Liana Kersner, who is very eloquent. She sees what I see. She knows what's going on. But I don't know if she's tuned in. She's not Gamergate, I don't think, but it's kind of like the Gamergate people. I don't think she's quite tuned in enough to see what's really going on. I'm glad she's here, and I'm glad she's doing this, but it's yes, I did need to be here, didn't I? Yes, I did. Because look, what Anita Sarkeesian is doing is what some people have caught just a little snippet of her coming out of a seminar. But see, they don't let you in those damn seminars unless you were working for the folks from the vector marketing firm, like I was for a little while. They let you in their little special things, and they tell you to do all kinds of crap about how you just spin up hype and controversy and create, hiding the duck and all these things. And, it's just that's all they do. But when it's all in the name of broadcasting, there's a lot of leeway for them to be doing everything they do. And especially the way how she handles it, where she's very she's actually very sheepish. I know a lot of people think of Anita Sarkeesian as this brazen digital warrior wielding her swords upon the video game industry, and it's does anyone ever notice how rarely she'll actually mention a game studio's name? Did anyone ever notice that? Yeah, that's because none of you are journalists. Like, pretty much none of you are journalists. I'm not even sure if Liana Kersner here, who's a fellow writer, is a journalist or has any inclination towards journalism. You know, and that's fine, that's cool. It's a very, like, oh, we think we're cool kind of territory over here. But yeah, like, that's the big thing. That guy, Sargon of Akkad, is one of those people that's definitely inclined towards journalism kind of person, you know. And it's like, yeah, that's the difference, is when writers become inclined towards journalists, we tend to become, like, actual goddamn journalists. But yeah, that's the big difference here, is Anita Sarkeesian's no journalist. She's not even really a public intellectual. She's probably a feminist of some variety, but not the kind that she presents in public. The kind that she presents in public is a marketing tactic. It's very fucking simple. It's just, what's the biggest game thing right now? Oh, it's that. Hey, that's what pisses people off. Calling them sexist and talking about the patriarchy like it's just real as can be, when everyone's watching their, like, sisters and their, you know, wives and girlfriends, like, go back to college and, like, succeed at work and fucking do shit like Liana Kersner's here is doing right here, and just, like, what are you talking about? Like, there are certainly problems in the world today that are, like, related to women specifically, that, like, men are kind of, like, ill-equipped to discuss very well or address very well, but it's the combination, people. It's not all the women go off over there and all the men go off over there and these things fix themselves. It's the combination. It's the working together. And that's what I think Feminist Frequency is just terrible at. She's almost always just kind of saying, like, no, I won't even appear on camera with my, like, live-in boyfriend, Jonathan McIntosh. You know, like, they won't even appear on camera together. Ever. And, like, she won't, like, let someone like me, who's very, like, nicey nice guy, blogger guy, not fucking Daniel, not fucking Phil, not fucking TJ, not the fucking deer guy. No, someone like me. There's more than just one of me. Let one of us do an approved interview. What's the problem? Just do it in the blogs. No one will notice it. It won't be a big deal. What's the deal? You know, and that's what it is it's like, it's just not gonna happen. I'll probably do that. I'll do, like, the formal thing with the Feminist Frequency channel at a certain stage here, and nothing will come of it. And I'll probably do the same thing to Liana Kersner here, and we'll probably maybe work together on something. So, you know, that's the big difference, is some of these people are here to just kind of kick it around and say some things and make some videos, and that's really all they're trying to do. And they'll raise things like sexism in the game industry, and they'll raise things like whatever big news story, but they don't really intend to bring anything forward other than just, hey, I'm here saying this. And that's definitely where Liana here has hit the nail on the head. She gets the ding. Ding! Good job.
Before you dismiss me as a men's rights activist, I see advocacy to get more help for male victims of abuse as a moral imperative of feminism and feminist gaming culture. As we get closer to gender equality, it's reasonable to expect more instances of women being openly abusive to men. There isn't something inherently evil inside men or inherently virtuous inside women. Men just used to have a lot more social and economic power than women, so they could get away with more abuse. This is changing in a globalized world, whereas Feminist Frequency's analytical tools appear frozen in the 1970s. Okay, I'll be generous and say the 1990s. That's still a 25-year gap in applicability. Unlike Feminist Frequency, I won't support any statement that implies that one gender is more truthful or believable than another. I was so upset by this listen and believe stuff and its erasure of the experiences of male victims that over 3 months ago I made a YouTube response video. Males and females, gamers and non-gamers deserve to be listened to, but there also has to be a burden of proof to weed out the admittedly tiny percentage of people who lie about this stuff. I was surprised to get any positive response at all to my video, but it has, to date, received a 95% approval rating, despite the video being seen nearly 19,000 times. It made me happy that so many people took the time to say thank you to me for making it. However, I also discovered firsthand how criticizing anything Anita Sarkeesian says makes you a pariah in social justice circles, and makes you a high-level target on some subreddits that inspire and fuel abuse. Some of Anita's followers started circulating false accusations of racism and transphobia against me, proven by statements deliberately taken out of context so they look bad when they were really quite innocent. When I tried to explain where I was coming from, my explanations were dismissed as merely claims, not statements of my own intentions, which is something only I could know. In these instances, listen and believe became attack and destroy. When a group of people is trying to ruin someone's reputation based on information they can reasonably determine is misleading, I call that harassment. If I actually held the sentiments they claim I do, that'd be one thing, but my words have been twisted and framed to make me look as bad as possible. In the ensuing melee, I've been reminded that the personhood of minority groups must be supported without denying the personhood of the majority. I've always been uncomfortable with the way feminist frequency picks on the white and Japanese, cisgendered heterosexual establishment because any pushback can be easily dismissed as racism, sexism, or some sort of phobia.
Yeah, that's my criticism of the feminist frequency kind of stuff on the left wing, it's often called in politics, and perspectives in general kind of stuff that gets labeled left-wing politics. Like, I definitely agree with what she was saying there. That's very true. You have a lot of people who love doing the easy target. You know, like they'll go after white men and Asian men, and they'll go after cigarette smokers and beer drinkers, and they'll go after all of that till they're blue in the face. But you want them to just go after like let's say wine in like wine country, tax wine. Why? Just because the children, all of a sudden these liberals, these hardcore progressive individuals just wither up. They wither up like fucking little roses that just can't stand it anymore. And I've always been the one that's driving all these people crazy right there in their hometowns and whatnot, Like, hey, look, Hillary Clinton should give the money back. What are you talking about? She took some money from the Keystone Pipeline people in 2014. She should give them back the $500,000. Yeah, and they're just like, no, you're supposed to be polarized around Hillary right now. You're supposed to be holding her bosoms up for the world. And it's like, no, I don't give a fuck about her. If you're all about Elizabeth Warren, I'd be going nuts, but you're not, so screw you. And yes, I think Liana Kersner gets that one too. That it kind of doesn't make sense. That it's like, no, if it's a bad thing that white and Asian men are everywhere, then it could be like equally a bad thing. If that was your only point, then it could be equally a bad thing that there was like white and Asian women everywhere, or black and Asian women everywhere, or black and Hispanic women everywhere. Or, it's like, it's not a very good point. And exactly, that's feminist frequency kind of in a nutshell. Like, go there to hear a whole bunch of public intellectualism that makes really, really, really bad points. Just really bad points. Like, hey, it's really bad that like there's a lot of men that are Caucasian and a lot of men that are Asian American that work in the tech sector. Why is that bad? Is there, like women who want to get in and they can't get in? No, it's just bad. It's just bad. There's just men there. And that's bad. And it's like, what? And that seriously is the point. I mean, they don't have a failure of marketing paradigms. They've got like 17 marketing paradigms, and every single video you've ever seen produced by Feminist Frequency past a certain date, it is just amazing. It is just like, oh, good show. You hid the duck, and you put and there's like a cherry on top for me. Oh my gosh, people. Wow. I almost felt like clapping when I saw her do the Kickstarter thing. Like, I was felt like clapping. But you gotta understand, like, I just haven't got around to that website. I mean, shit. Do you have any idea? I checked out my price points. I looked at my margins. She's a punk. She's a punk, people. She ain't nothing. I don't know what the hell she was thinking. I was like, what? I need to build a fucking home studio in a private island, too, while we're at it. I can justify that. Why can't I? Did you read the website's agreements? Yeah, I can go crazy on there. And if it doesn't go anywhere, then what is that? Like 30 minutes of my time? No, a little more than that. So yeah, that's interesting to hear her out here on this one. Liana K. She knows what's happening. She knows the deal. I'm glad she didn't stop writing. We'll do a little more and then we're gonna stop with her.
This establishment is an easy villain, and anyone else who disagrees with Anita is just lumped in as a tool of this establishment. The fact that I've been writing about issues related to women in games before Anita Sarkeesian even started her Kickstarter has been declared irrelevant. Sarkeesian's fans mercilessly bully any dissenters, myself included. I was even told by an editor of a prominent gaming website that people lying about me was morally equivalent to my critiques of Anita. The preceding statement seems even more ridiculous and cruel when you factor in the fact that, from the beginning, I've always said that I want feminist frequency to keep going. I just want them to improve and refine their methods. That modest level of dissent resulted in online pariah status. That's not community, that's a cult. I also discovered that definitively proving that I was harassed was nearly impossible, because the confirmation bias regarding internet harassment tends to be strong. Even if I could prove someone made inappropriate comments and whipped up others to attack me as well, the defense was that I deserved it. Listen and believe easily morphs into hear and ignore when a group labels someone their political enemy. This phenomenon isn't unique to gaming. It's common in all extreme internet discourse. The extreme right and the extreme left both use this sort of rationalization. Breitbart.com is no less guilty of these rationalizations than feminist frequency is. The problem is there's a lot of money in shameless bias right now. It's destroying the potential for objective reporting and objective analysis. It's hurting a lot of innocent people who don't want to be exposed to political zealotry, and it's leading to more tepid, less creative, less diverse video games. On top of that, how can anyone enjoy a hobby that's supposed to be fun with all this radical bellowing going on? The thing is, game developers don't really listen to right-wing ranters. Right-wing zealots are seen as insane conservative bigots attempting to oppress through xenophobia. But a radical, self-hating feminist influence is starting to be felt in AAA game development, and there's a direct line between that and feminist frequency. For better or for worse, Tropes vs. Women as a series has affected change in gaming culture. My concern is that there's more for worse in that change than any of us wants to admit. Consider, if you will, the connection when David Gator, the lead writer of Dragon Age Inquisition, actively defends Anita Sarkeesian. Dragon Age Inquisition then displays a narrowing in the types of women it depicts compared to previous Dragon Age games, despite the overall scale of Inquisition being larger. The Dragon Age franchise used to be something I considered a gold standard title regarding the equal inclusion of well-written female characters. I can't say that anymore because it's narrowed female gender expression. For example, it's important to have female villains as well as heroes. However, the Desire demons of Dragon Age have vanished from view despite being the only visible female demons in the canon. Granted, the demons have always supposed to have been genderless, but they're also reflections of heightened emotional states from the mortal world. If they'd made over the Desire demons the way they redid the Sloth, now Despair demons to make all demons amorphous blobs, that would have been one thing. Instead, however, they kept the vaguely masculine-looking Pride demons and just removed the Desire demons from visual participation. Meanwhile, the character of Cole, Inquisition's anthropomorphized spirit of compassion, is gendered male. This is despite compassion being traditionally seen as a feminine trait. As awesome a character as Cole is, he's male just because. There's no compelling reason he couldn't have been female. It's stuff like this that makes the changes to Dragon Age lore seem less like a logical refining of the game and more a reactive change to feminist frequency's brand of public pressure. And trust me, it kills me to say that. Overall, I love the work of David Gator and his team.
Well, here's one. I'll stop there with the Dragon Age Inquisition kind of summary critique review she just did. I have a rather long cut of audio about that I may or may not use at some point, but I'll just sum it up here. I now, as of this moment, disagree with Liana Kersner because I don't think that was the core thing that happened there. She's right that her point that the Tropes vs. Women series, this truncated, unfinished series that is on there on here, is on their channel on this website. Yeah, like that definitely has had like a profound effect on the gaming industry, not just the dialectic or some kind of word like that, but no, like the gaming industry. Like, yes, that's true. If you're in on these things at all, you know that's true. But, you know, there's this big giant leap being taken here to say, like, the specifically Dragon Age Inquisition title was like this thing that was kind of the byproduct of, like, birthed out of Anita Sarkeesian's plan for the media. It's like, no, there's a total, like, lesbo sex scene that I totally accessed the living crap out of, and there's, like, some really my kind of, you know, what they call locker room humor surrounding the Iron Bull romances and multiple different sides of genres. I think what most of this is they finally covered like homosexuality in a video game in a very like tasteful and like sexually provocative manner, and a lot of people are like, whoa, and it's like, yeah, like what? You know, like, I don't know, it's just so hard to freak me out with that, because it's like I just grew up around gay people, so it doesn't fucking freak me out at all. But yeah, there's the Dorian character, who's extraordinarily well written, and very well, like, you know, modeled, or however you want to say that, with video gaming stuff, where he, like, looks well and looks good, and if you're gay as all shit, you're probably all about that guy, and you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's part of it in terms of why people are pissed, is they captured like a lot of the elements of real human sexuality for the purposes of the romance subplot stuff in that game, and they executed it quite well. You know, the kind of sheepish, slightly tortured lesbian you have to like approach a certain way, the very bohemian kind of tough guy you just kind of like can get with no matter what, the romancy warrior woman you have to really work hard on. You know, it's like each person has their own little thing and their own way that you do it. And, you know, what is it? Solus, the elven intellectual fellow. Me, he's the hardest to get to know and the hardest to get to sack. And oh my gosh, isn't that just like real life? So yeah, it's just a thing to understand that that particular title, I don't think a lot of the social critiques that Liana Kersner and others have made like hold any water at all. It's just kind of like, no, like, this is the same thing Anita does all the damn time. It's like, you didn't really, like, delve into this game, like, a lot. Or you're, like, just not seeing the things that I'm seeing in it. But I think her point about the desire demons is valid. That there's a level of kind of, oh no, let's not be overly sensitive about things, you know. But we saw that in Skyrim. And so few people ever mention that with Skyrim. And that was years ago, and that was before the feminist frequency stuff. You know, that was like before that, or at least before it was like relevant to anybody. So yeah, that's another thing to understand, is this is an old thing in video gaming. This is not a new thing. There's a strong market for, what the hell would you call it? Like the Beach Babes stuff in video gaming. You know, it's like there's a strong market for it. But then it's really hard to like smash that next to like, you know what, like the Call of Duty franchise or something, you know. And it's kind of better to just kind of go the Skyrim route, where you're like, look, we're playing Lord of the Rings, you know. This is like fucking shit. There's no fucking people that are gonna show up in bikinis, and oh, look at what the modding world did to that game, you know. Oh, holy jeez, you know. So that's what I'm talking about, is that there's an element of, you know, weird dumbasses that people like Yahtzee of The Escapist like to underscore quite eloquently going on in the gaming industry. And Anita Sarkeesian is really just a byproduct of that more than anything else, you know. And yeah, she has her crazy fans. One of the things that's possible that I addressed before in my Some Guy and Repsion thing, Extra Cut, you know, one thing I addressed there a little bit is that, you know, there's these crazies out there doing this stuff. One thing that's a possibility is that those crazies are not Anita, they're pro. You know, I raised that the day when the first real threat came down, when she canceled that speech in Utah and everything. Not that this is true and I have proof of it or something. That would be very different. But no, that's one of the possibilities, is her fans, not many of them, but some of them, are mentally deranged and they're sending her death threats. You know, they're stalking her. And they're trying to, you know, create illegal communique. You know, they're trying to create terrorism through the internet in the name of, you know, feminism or protecting Anita or something. I mean, you know, stalking and cyber stalking is not some new issue, folks. It's not something that just came up, you know, a couple years ago. This is a very old thing now, and it happens much less because we people, hello, we people, how you doing? That's us. At least while you're here. Yeah, we people have done a lot to change things. And I'm down at the bottom of these lungs of the ladders and totem poles, by the way. But I am we people's, and we've done a lot to change the internet to make it safer and less hostile. And it can never be perfect. You know, there's always going to be a point where something's going to come up and you're going to have to click the little, you know, I don't want to hear from this person anymore button. But that's as much as it is. You know, that's really as much as it is. And Anita Sarkeesian is being dishonest when she's constantly raising the issue of cyber harassment as this just, you know, necessary element to be discussed at all times. It's like, no, it's important and it deserves some touching upon, but the internet is very keenly attuned to exactly what that is. And, you know, almost every measure that could be taken has been taken to protect you as a user from that. And Liana's Kersner's, to go back to that, Liana Kersner and her point about Dragon Age Inquisition, a little bit off base. Not crazy, not stupid, just a little bit off base. The game has a lot of different realms of sexuality, all expressed in there all together. Some of it could easily be taken into the feminist frequency channel and torn apart for its horrible misogyny. And some of it could be brought up in some kind of severely right-wing Breitbart edition kind of stuff and just torn apart for its horrible diversity, you know. So no, it's just a thing where that game was kind of all over the damn map in terms of what it was portraying at a social level. And then at a gaming level, that's what I cut a bunch of content about, is there's fucking, like, you know, tech guys rambling kind of stuff coming at you now, where it's like, yeah, there's all kinds of, like, map degenerate slap these people invisible wall stuff. There's filler moments, there's bad game direction, there's cutscenes that are too short, there's these moments where it's like, what the hell, like we went through all of this and I get this like 25-second cutscene for all my trouble. The whole thing with the war table doesn't make any sense at a purely logistical level about how the entire game works and how it's not a true sandbox. What else? I mean, shit, this is all the stuff that Razorfist got into in his review of this game, and people thought that he was totally fucking tearing Dragon Age Inquisition apart, like just tearing it to shit, and it was a positive review. He just forgot to like do the positive part of the review. That's what I do sometimes too. So anyway, Liana Kersner has gotten 17 minutes of my time, and she's quite smart, she's quite sexy, she's a writer, I like her. She's a little bit wrong about Dragon Age Inquisition, but other than that, you can just go and listen to what she has to say. And that's going to be pretty damn close to what I have to say if I do a big long thing all about feminist frequency. Oh, yes, by the way, subscribe now or miss out later on the Eruptide podcast, on the Eruptide channel, on the Eric Lightborn Blogging Enterprises. Eric Lightborn also has a YouTube channel under the same name. Though there isn't a lot on there right now, mostly using Eruptide. And subscribe now or miss out later.